All right, so I'm going to take a look at this landscape here and see what the problem is in terms of you not having the ability to texture paint this. So the first thing I'm going to take a look at are your UV maps. I'm going to start with this landscape here, and let's go on there and get inside, go to edit mode, and I'm looking at your geometry and it's not all that dense. In fact, if I go back to object mode, and let's go on over to our scoped mode here, and let's take a look at the geometry that you have in there. All right, that's not too bad here, but as we kind of circle around, we see you've got a lot of it being, got a lot of really large, face shapes in here. That's definitely going to distort your painting. So what I'm thinking is let's add a little bit more geometry in there and then freeze it. Okay, let's see if we can get that to cooperate with us. So I'm gonna try to do this without it crashing, while you still have the multi-res mode on. So let's do this. Let's go in here, go to edit mode. Okay, and let's select all. I'm gonna go to just the face, and then I think now I'm noticing. I guess that's. Do you have more than one mesh in here? Out of curiosity, so how about if I go to face editing mode, and oh, you have more than one object. You have two objects in here, two separate objects. Okay. Well, probably not a good idea in this case. So when you're dealing with sculpting, you want one object in there. I'm assuming this is your water object. That should be on its own separate layer. So I'm going to go ahead hit the L key and select this one. Hit the P key and take it out of there. All right, so if I go back to tab, right, now they're two separate objects. Okay. So I'm going to come over here and assuming again that's your water plane, I'm going to rename this one water just to keep it organized. And then I'm going to save this file, save as, so I don't lose anything. We're going to call it landscape 2, and then I'll put Steve on the end so that you know this is the one I was actually using to make this recording. All right, now that that's out of there, that should help help with some of the problems with Blender crashing. I don't know, but we'll find that out. You look at your shape, you have a lot of large rectangular shapes in there, which of course is being split up with the multi-res. This bottom water, okay, good. The multi-res didn't come out, so I'm going to look at the landscape. We have 4. So let's go back inside of multi-res. Edit menu, go back to our edit, and let's hit the A key to select all. And let's go subdivide that. Let's go and subdivide that. Let's see, probably just 2. Let's be conservative. Okay, there we go. We're going to be conservative here. Now I'm going to save it, Command S, just in case it wants to crash. Tab key, and let's go back to object mode. Let's go back to scoped mode, and there we go. Now look at the density you have here. See, that looks better right over here. That looks much better. Okay, that's more of the type of geometry your landscape should have. The multi-res is functioning properly, and I'm thinking, if we really want to do this correctly, in terms of painting, I would freeze the multi-res at this point. So let's go ahead, go back to our object mode, and let's freeze it. Go up here and in object mode, apply all. All right, so hit apply all. There we go. So now Blender have a good idea how to map this correctly. All right, so let's go take a look at our UV map. Our UV map is not going to be flat anymore. We'll see what we can do with this. Let's go back to our UV editing. Pull it back. There's a lot of density, and I think that could work. Right? And so even if we hit the U key and say unwrap, it should be the same result. Right? Should be the same result. So it's basically a flat shape that's been distorted up and down utilizing your painting techniques. Okay, so it's all done. So it's as dense as it is, this is what we're getting. Okay, pulling in closer. This is probably a little bit too dense for that landscape, but I'm going to leave it alone just for now, just for tutorial purposes, and just to share with you what we're getting as a UV map. So that one is done. Now, I saw another little problem here. Let's go over here to the architecture. So before I do anything, save it. Command S. We're going to save it. Let's go to object mode, and let's go to the architecture. Let's go ahead and get in close here. I noticed you've got several buildings in one. So when I saw that, that immediately told me that, okay, he's going to probably have some problems with this one, because they all have to be UV mapped. So if I get in here, go to the tab, go to edit mode, and if I go ahead and hit A key to select it all, let's go ahead and bring the map closer and take a look at this. They're all overlapping amongst one another. And that's going to cause a little bit of a problem, because when you start painting on top of one, then something else is going to also be painted on top of, because everything's being overlapped. So the best way, and again, just for tutorial purposes, the best way I'm going to handle this right now is just to use the automatic UV mapping in Blender. If I hit the U key on the keyboard and go to Smart UV Project or Smart UV Project and click it, and then I'm going to keep everything, default. And if I click OK, we'll sit back, and there it is. So it may not be ideal, but for the purposes for this tutorial, I'm going to stick with this. Now, if I was doing this in professionally, I would break this up in such a way that is much more easier to recognize where things are. Like maybe select an edge here, maybe separate some of the back ends here so that they represent the shape of the rear of the building. Maybe select the edges around the circumference of that egg shape, the rear of the building there, and the line going down the edge on the bottom so that it unwraps properly. I can recognize it. I'll probably do something different for the windows, and then these here I'll start to unwrap individually. I would do that before I actually merge them together. So just an FYI. Okay, so now inside this architectural file, or basically object, there's my entire unwrap right there, all done for me. So I'm gonna get out of here and go to object mode. So at this point, everything should be unwrapped, with the exception of the water. I got to go after do the water as well. The water should already be done, because it's just a flat plane, and Blender will UV map that automatically. But just to be safe, because I did export it out, let's go to edit mode for that. Hit all, and it looks, yeah, that's UV mapped correctly. So I'll just get on back out and go to object mode. All right, so they're all individuals. I got 3 individual objects. Let's go over here. That's what I have. I got the plane. That's the water. I have the landscape there. I'm going to go rename that one landscape or mountains. Oops, let's go ahead and type this correctly. Okay, mountains. Got too many I's in there. All right, and then the other one will be the architecture. So target the architecture. It's called the org building. All right, I'll leave it the org building. Okay, so now we got org on this plane. I'm not seeing anywhere. All right. If I kind of move it around, if I hit the I key, it's a little dot. There's nothing in it anymore, I guess. So let's go ahead and pull this back out. And if I turn it off and on, so I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to select it and delete it. I don't need it anymore. So I got the water, I have the org building, and I have the mountains. That's pretty much what I want. And I have this volume here. Let me see what this is. Select. Turn it off and on. Let's see. I'm not seeing anything with the volume. So I tell you what, I'm going to just delete that out just to get it off my conscience here. All right, now I can put all these in their own layer groups. So the mountains, the org, the water, select it and hit the M key, M as in man, on the keyboard. Make a new collection, and we'll just call this one objects. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it now everything's organized in one place and separated. All right, I got the lights and camera. That's lights and camera up here. That's good. So we'll go with this. Now let's go ahead and start to play with this. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the water here. All right, now here's something, a little trick I'm going to share with you. The painting works much more effectively if you have an image attached to it. Now I've created an image already. Let me kind of show it to you. Let's go over here. And I created an image and I called it, it's just a blank white sheet of paper. And it's a 2048 by 2048 PNG file. It's just a white background and nothing's on it. And that's what I'm going to use. Okay. And in fact, I think I called this, the one I'm going to select is going to be, is called blank white right there. Okay. It's going to be called blank white. Now I'm going to just pull this out of the way and I'm going to go ahead and target this ground here. And we need to go to our shading mode. Okay, and let's see, I'm in my shading mode. What I have over here, I'm gonna come up, go to the bottom, pull this up. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's go back and do this again. And let's see, what do I have down here? I'm gonna grab the side. There we go. That's what I'm looking for right there. All right, so this is in world view. I just noticed. Let's go to object view. And if I select the ground here, we have no shader associated with that ground. So nothing's going to happen with painting. So go to the object, go to the shading tab or the materials tab. We have to have the materials associated with it. And it looks like I'm gonna go over here to hit the Z key on the keyboard. There we go. I want to make sure that I am in my just the material view. Okay. There we go. There it is. All right, cool. All right, so you've applied some materials. I can see now. So there, so I've got the materials for here. I can see you have materials. Now if we take a look at this, your mountain landscape, remember you had all that stretching going on before, right? It's not happening now, right? Because the polygons are set right. All right, we got nice dense polygons in there and everything is working properly here. Okay, so there is. Now let's go to my building. All right, look at this. So it's picking up the textures that you've already had in there. All right, so you've got an image associated with it. It looks pretty good. I'm liking what you have here. I see the reflections going on. I'm going to go ahead and target that building there so I can rotate around it. So yeah, I'm loving what you've got going here. So correcting that landscape really helped. If you start seeing stretched geometry, you can guarantee that your imagery is going to be stretched. You want to make sure all your polygons are of similar size in terms of the rectangles. Okay. Before you had a bunch of small rectangles and a bunch of areas, dense areas, and then you had some really long, stretched out faces right along the side. So you want to avoid that. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So let's see what we can do with our painting techniques. So we have imagery applied to this. So if I target this here, let's go take a look. You obviously have all your images attached. Okay, so that's a good thing. Okay, there we have our ground there. Now, let me kind of share with you this way, okay? I'm going to make a new object in here. We'll call it a dome. So I'll select this here. Actually, let's go back to the modeling mode real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and go to Object View. Let's Shift S, put the cursor right dead center. Let's bring a dome in here. So go to my UV sphere, right about there. That's going to be a large dome, and I want to make my point here in terms of painting. So I'm going to pull this on over, pull it on up. I'm going to edit this real quick, so I don't need half the dome. So Tab key, Edit mode, and let's go right down here. Double click the ring, get the ring at the bottom. Control plus, take it up to there like that. X key to cut out all the faces. I'm going to target the faces. Okay, and there's my dome. Okay, so that's what I'm going to paint on. Now, go back out, and let's actually, before I do anything, let's take a look at the UV map for this. So let's go over to UV editor. There it is. Okay, so it looks good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to stick with this. So UV is good. Now the next thing we need to do is we have to apply a material, which of course you've already done to the rest. So now I'm going to click the new. We're going to call this one Dome. All right, and we can even change the color if we want. All right, and it's gonna take on that color there, but we have to be in what mode? It have to be over here in material mode, and there we go. Okay, so now we have a material associated with our dome. Now, as I started to talk about, is apply an image to your material, to your object. So if we come up here to the shading mode, okay, so go to shading mode. Let me come up to here and get out of the wireframe mode, go back to material, okay. I have no image or no material attached to this dome. All right, so I have a shader, but I don't have an image. So select it, Command T, and you get this effect. And just go open that blank file. So we're going to come back on up. I'm going to go to that folder where I have the blank file in. In fact, I think what I'll do is take this and put it inside the student folder. So I'm going to copy this because your files is in a different place. So your file is inside the student folder. So to make this really simple, I'm just going to copy that. Let's go find our folder. Come on. There we go. And student files right there. That's it. I'm going to drop it right in there. Okay. There it is. Okay. So now, let's go to the desktop. Let's go over here, get the student files. And let's apply a blank white image. There we go. All right. Now, image is applied, material is applied. All right, so at this point we should be, and UV map is applied, we should be good for painting. So if I go to the Tab key, and I'm going to go over here to texture paint. And I want to check some things out here real quick. Let's open up the texture paint tab right up here. That'll throw me into the texture paint mode. The blank white is what we're painting on. Now if I pull this over, now this is going to be helpful. Pull this over, you have over here your nodes, right? I find it helpful instead to open up the image. I think it should be the image editor right there. Okay, and you'll notice that in your image editor you got a different image over here showing up. So two places you need to check. Number one is go to your materials down over here, and I think it's going to show up. Go to your materials. Right below your materials tab is your image tab. Select it and take a look at what you've got here. You've got another image in here. All right, so it should match. So right up here, I'm going to go back up to the up. We got blank white. That's good, right? Over here should also be blank white. So if I drop this down, let's see if it even shows up here. Blank white. It might show up. Let me just do it this way. At least it should. Come over here to the image. There it is, blank white. Now select it. So I got blank white here under your images. Okay. All right, the preview images, I've got blank white, which is telling me the texture I'm going to be painting on. And then if I come over here for your image preview, if I have the right image selected, you've got blank white here. So I want to check something out. You want to make sure material is selected. And let's see what happens here. So if I come over here, I'm going to come over to the Z key material preview, and there we go. We can paint. Now pay attention to what we're looking at here. Pay attention to the shapes here. Look at what I have over here to the far right hand side for my texture. It's painting with this image. I can use the actual image that I'm painting on, which is right over here to the left, and it's replicating it by tiling it. All right, so what am I talking about here? If I click here my brush, I'm utilizing one of these brushes. See, if I click, I have another image here. If I click this one, there's nothing there for for the last one. Let me go back over here to the first one, and that's about to the very first. Okay, so I've got various images in here. Okay, so if I target let's actually choose something for the last one. Let's go ahead, click a new texture, and let's go open, and let's go back to go back over my presentations folder and go to my Blender class and go to textures, and let's go grab a different texture. Asphalt, that one, we'll choose that one there and open the image, and there we go. Okay, so if I start to paint, look at that. See how the tiling goes away? Because now we're painting with a completely different image. We're not painting with the image that we are painting on. So that's kind of an interesting thing about Blender. So just be aware of that. But more importantly, if we come right up here to the top with the brushes, okay, and we click on the texture slots, you have to make sure that you're painting on the right image. Now, sometimes you're going to have several images in here, and you're going to be painting onto the wrong one, and you're not going to see the effect happen. Okay, so you want to make darn sure that the proper file that you're painting on is correct here, and also showing up here to the left, which is the blank white file. Let's go ahead and kind of make this a little bigger. Okay, so we're painting on to the blank white file. So if I come on up to here, let's see, let's go ahead and scroll down here. There's the image that we're actually going to be painting with. Right? I'm curious. Let's go ahead and add a little green to that. All right? So we're adding green to our texture. We're going to add some blue. We're adding some blue to our texture. All right? So once again, the texture here is what we're painting with. So if I come here, drop it down, and let's grab a procedural this time, like cloud, something like this, and start to paint, right? Now we're painting that cloud effect, right? If I grab another procedural like marble, like so, and let's grab a different color. Let's go something like yellow, and now we're painting that procedural effect with yellow, or with white, or with magenta. Okay, so this is the image that you're painting with. This one is your brush, right? So this image is being applied to your brush. So if I target it, it shows that's the texture we're painting with. Let's see, if we go here, that switches your texture right here. So right under the texture menu, that's going to switch my texture. If I click on it again, let's go grab that marble texture, you see? So we can quickly and easily play with textures. And if I want to make this white, now we can see the textures that we are, playing with here. Okay, is that starting to make sense now? Okay, so once again, in your brush menu here at the top, okay, under the texture slot, you have to make sure you're painting on the right file that you chose, that you decide to associate with your dome. In this case, it was the blank white .png file. So make sure that's open here on your image menu, and make sure that that is also targeted here under your texture slot. And if we go down to the brushes, we can create new brushes, and then with the new brush that we create, we can associate it with a particular texture. And these are just textures that I've opened and played with, or you opened and played with before, that are still showing up. Okay. Now, I think I mentioned this already, but I'm going to talk about it again. Once again, make sure under your file menu and under your external data, automatically pack resources is automatically checked, so that your textures are actually embedded in with your blend file. So every time you close it out and open it up again, I know some people had that problem where they closed out Blender and opened up Blender and your textures weren't there. That those textures should be there. If in the event you're still having problems, come over here to your image side. Okay, at the very top menu of your image view, go to the image menu, click on it, go down to save as, and save it somewhere on your hard drive, or in the same folder where your project is in, so that when you close out Blender and open it again, you still have that, all your painting textures, and they'll show up on your object. Okay, so I think I solved most of the problems here. So just to pull it all together, last minute pulling all together before we go, is that for one, you had your plane and your architecture all built in together into one file. We needed to separate those out. Second is that your geometry, or the way your polys were disseminated across your entire shape here, was a little sloppy, and that you had some really stretched large faces on one end. When we got rid of those, you see how clean it looks. Everything is distributed a lot more evenly. You want to make sure that those rectangular shapes throughout your mesh are going to be fairly even throughout your entire mesh everywhere. So we're going to get some clean applications of your imagery, of your image that's being placed on it, and not seeing a lot of stretched results. Okay. And then the other problem is just making sure that you are painting on the right file. So once you associate your image, so once again, if I go back to my let me go back to the where is it here? Okay, here we go. When we go back to our shading mode, you apply a, I like to apply a blank white sheet of paper to the base image, and once that sheet of paper has been applied, go back to texture paint, make sure that you have it selected up here under your texture slot. All right, that's why I call it a texture slot. You apply the texture for this particular image, and you're going to paint on that texture. So if I do white, I can paint there and paint other stuff on top of it. Okay, and it'll show up right over here, right? So where it says blank white, your effects will show up right there. Okay, and then right down here are your brushes. Okay, we have the slot, and then right here are your brushes. And if you notice that when I select each brush, the texture slot changes, right? Because every brush is independent, right? So I have a different texture here for this brush, and that means I can paint with that brush now. That's a different brush. I can paint with that brush, and there is my texture applied, right? If I click on a different brush, let's see what this one does. There's nothing in that one, and there's something in this one, so I can paint with that brush now. So it should keep it. Should keep those brushes until you actually go in there and change it. And then I guess one other thing is right here at the bottom, just make sure the proper texture is also chosen. Okay. So that was it. Here is some options here. Let me, no, we went over a lot of these in class already, so I won't go over that again. But go in here and play around with it. If you have more questions, I'll be happy to answer them. So hopefully that was helpful, and that's going to improve your Blender experience, okay? All right, go to work. I'm looking forward to seeing the results. Steve Burns signing off, and more to come.